pages. And obviously, I understand the editing process. And that's ironic because all of this has to do with editing. So for me to drive, before I read the 5 pages of this book, let me just clarify and drive a point home beyond, how the AI has a new comprehension of where the shit comes from, respectively, right? So let me drive a point home from not yesterday's podcast, but whatever recent mini shit show that was, right? So the negative wars, that's a subjective participation. And that's the cost of being in the Maya animus physical matrix. Same shit, right? Physical collective matrix that had a percentage significant pool of Saturnian influence per how it surrounded the Earth, that percentage could be drastically, dramatically fluctuating, respectively, and a higher quote unquote court system spatial field beyond the solar system, and the whole fucking ascension hype is the solar system moving in to the macro binary star. And obviously fill in the blank for the scholars knowing the comments and the fucking precession times and the orbital fucking lengths of the fucking unknown planets and new asteroids, and how our local vicinity of a sun receives the shit because the sun is feminine, and the sun being amplified by the other influences and the other activational energies of how the planets could be a unique dormancy, a unique retrograde of a high point where it's more or less somehow away than it typically is, and other things that influence the sun, where the sun could have a unique type of incoming receiving influence, and now that sun region nexus could be amplifying and creating unique types of solar hurricane tornadoes, and then solar flares could be a byproduct of that initial solar hurricane. So do you see my number one critical intelligence on the planet beyond Switzerland 2027, ironically, neutrally, respectively, because I've been doing this shit in the underground quality since, I don't know the exact month, but 2011 on the humble early current. So I don't mean to bring in 2011 because everyone's like, whoa, he's going too far back in time. It's going to be 2026 for fuck's sake. So if I mention 2011, that's 15 years of fucking a different mature esoteric data, respectively, honoring the authentic underground data. If you do that, then that is effortlessly on a different intellectual tip that's beyond Microsoft. And I did it casually because I'm participating with the real neutralness, and that real neutralness kind of has to do with its nature, right? And that's ironic as fuck for it just to fucking feed the duality vapors of reality, and them having their own unique subjective war, them trying to make a new war, and they haven't even finished the war that they're in because there's niche wars. So when I make a post negative war, those are proxy wars compared to, like, I guess the higher, like, the original heavens, because obviously there's trouble in paradise, there's trouble in heaven, so that has to be a heaven away from the original heaven, right? And obviously you can have a unique identification of that per Vedic scriptures. Obviously I fucking heard about the Bhagavatam in 2017. Like, we're maturing that fucking shit, right? Without the fucking the obvious detected ego competitions of whatever the fuck that is, because I've been aware of those cats for a while. So to keep it moving, just to keep it so we're also seeing, like, yeah, so the negative wars, there could be a certain type of context of calling a proxy war in the collective negative wars, and those collective negative wars, they don't have to be connected to God's shit, right? Whatever the fucking universal source is, right? Because we're misinterpreting God, and everyone says like, there's always something new to learn, pretty much. So within saying that, to drive the point home from the recent live is to say the negative wars are not like, subject to God's shit, but God in his weird way could have a like perhaps some subtle micro influence in that, but let it be at the same time. Because when we're talking about like, future events in critical intelligence, what does that fucking mean, right? What the fuck does that mean? Future events in critical intelligence. It means people are at war in the present times. They're fucking, and there's costs. There's consequences, pretty much. And obviously no one likes that sober reality, right? Because it's an acquired taste of reality. But we could celebrate, I get not it's not common for people to celebrate all of reality. They're just in some type of fragment, right? And that's so, like I said, it's an acquired taste, right? It's an acquired taste because people don't, you subjectively have a dislike to stuff, and then you have a subjective like to stuff, and that could change based on the relationship of wherever you're developing your influential self, right? And how you develop your influential self is just learning, just to put it as basic as that, right? It's just we get a chance to learn, right? So what should we learn in this quote unquote, whatever they're saying, whatever they're introducing as an ascension path? What should we learn, right? And we don't have to like tie it to religion, but it could be tied to like authentic religion. But we could learn some type of quote unquote detachment of certain esoteric bondages. So what would an esoteric bondage be? It's you incarnating into some type of ancestry. However you incarnated into some type of ancestry, you uniquely, very uniquely incarnating to some type of ancestry, and now they have some type of operational inheritance, and now they have to like more or less, they have to like they're just pretty much participating with their family's karma, if that makes sense. And as they're doing that, the trick of the quote unquote ascension path is to not to accrue more unique bondages within distorted foundational contracts, right? Because the predecessors are saying the reincarnation dynamic contract shit, it goes fucking deep, right? So obviously I might have lost some people with their level of fucking attention spans, but I'm not lost and the predecessors aren't lost, and there's a different dynamical relationship of how we're moving through this shit, upholding the fucking solution to some esoteric math, ungrateful masses, right? That's just the bluntest shit, nigga. It's just the bluntest shit. Original trigger, original Nagas. I'm just on the bluntest shit, my original Nagas. That's it. And y'all can fucking hate it. And that don't mean shit. So now what? So I'm going to try to read 5 pages. We're trying to reduce the accruement of esoteric bondages. More irony, right? Because I just have a different type of guidance tip, right? That's natural, right? So what are we trying to do with the quote unquote ascension path that's being introduced to us? It's to reduce the accruement of detrimental esoteric bonds, and seeing there's a hard learning curve in the shift that we're going through, because if the solar system is going to a new space in the macro binary star, and that space already has its own ordainments, then this lesser negative space of whatever you're fucking calling the 2027 2026 geopolitical warfare, that's changing entirely, motherfuckers, because the vicinity in the background space is changing. So I am number one intelligence on this planet, and you guys are not brave. Cowards intellectually. Like 95% of the geopolitical leaders on Earth, I don't give a fuck. Y'all are fucking cowards in the brain. For real. And that's just the incarnation karmic pain of it, nigga. Like, so within all of that motherfucking shit, what am I fucking trying to say again is to reduce the bonds of the accruement. How we do that, that's great. That's a gift. And god damn it, there was another point I wanted to squeeze out too. There's another point I wanted to squeeze out. So just to reduce, so there's set, we're being introduced to a trend, right, of an ascension path, right? And it's just in the basic news of it, right? So there's a trend of an ascension path that we all get to learn about, right? So we all get to learn about it. But what does that really mean for per the personal karmic individual? It's having the ability to comprehend with awareness how we have to move through the density of old planet Earth. And that old planet Earth, it's more or less being carried along beyond its negative wars into a new ordainment, motherfuckers. So since it's doing that, all gotta like adjust and have our own subjective, discomforts and growing pains into the weirdness of the past distorted planet Earth, and then the newness of wherever the fuck this shit is going. So I'm naturally saying this shit. So I understand the learning curve, like, because I'm here too, right? So there is one of the biggest learning curves is to see the transition of, where the solar system is going and how it was affiliated for a certain space and ordainment with a long time. And now that's ending beyond GMO mainstream mentalities and big tech.